welcome everybody to another episode of the Monitor Keeping Podcast. This is 2 weeks in a row we've managed to get on and get our lives together. So big applause to me and Kai.
I barely made this one. Barely.
Yeah, barely. More technical difficulties, but I think we got it all worked out for now. But yeah, we got another exciting show. Well, it's going to be exciting to me. I hope you guys enjoy it. But we're here with Jay from JLCL. If you guys don't know him, I'll let him explain. I'm a big fan. So Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thanks, Kai. Good to finally get to, see you face to face, so to speak.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you actually are quite a shy guy online. You only post lizards.
I only post lizards. Yeah, I keep my life and reptile life and life separate for some reason, but I think that's just the way it is. But yeah,
Kai is not that way.
I know. Well, I'm trying to get over it, but at the same time, like I'm a new parent. I'm like, I don't know what's cool to like show or share and stuff. I'm like, everyone just wants to see the reptiles. If you're reptile people just want to see the reptiles. So we'll just go with that.
I get entertained from Kai's stuff, honestly, because it'd be sitting there and be like, lizards. My hair looks good today, dude. And it just cracks me the heck up.
My son is just starting to get into the reptile room, though. So, like, I might be having him in there more and more, like, as he's getting into it. So, there might be more things.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, this same cage that you guys can see behind me. It's for people listening. It's a leopard gecko cage in my kid's room. Nothing special, but our son, he loves the new one. Loves to crawl up there, stand up next to it, and watch the geckos come out. Except they'll actually run at the glass because they think it's food time. And so when they get right at the glass, he'll like let go of what he's holding on to. Like they can eat his little fingers, but it's pretty cute. But enough about. We can't start on a tangent. My goodness. Okay, setting the pace for this one. Jay, why don't you tell us about what you're doing? I know what you're doing, but why don't you tell everybody listen what you're doing and what you're into and how it all began? Anything you want to share?
Yeah. Okay, so first let's start. So obviously everyone in the industry knows me as Jay, but for those of you that go way back to the King Snake forums and stuff, and the bioac, veroniday.org, my birth certificates. My name's Jarrett, but no one calls me that unless I'm in trouble or you're my grandmother. So Jay is what it is. But I've been keeping monitors probably since I was 14 years old. Got my first one, so it's going on 32 years.
What was your name on those monitor forums? Your screen name. God,
my screen name. I think it was JC Monitor. It may have been JC Monitor. I actually have a screenshot of one of them. I went in there.
That almost sounds familiar. Yeah.
Because so it was a big deal, right? So I'm not the first to breed Xanthematicus, but it was a big deal that I was the first documented, right? Because King Snake was new, the forums were new. Yeah. We were all just starting out. It was like a big hobby thing, whatever. And it was the first, like, here are pictures, here's the eggs, and here's what happened. And then I got approached by Daniel, and Veroniday was just getting started and stuff, and he's like, you should really document your stuff and get in touch with these people and whatever. And I wrote the article and stuff, but I get a lot of that because everyone online, because obviously, Facebook.
Were you talking about Daniel Bennett?
Daniel Bennett, Daniel Bennett.
Rest in peace, Daniel Bennett.
Yeah, and he was one of the major influencers of like telling me, he saw my stuff on King Snake and what I was doing. And he's like, go out there, veroniday.org, bioac.com. You want to start getting, this stuff documented. So, and he actually even helped, me clean up some of those first drafts because I'm like in my 20s at the time, and I'm like, doing Celsius and like, European measurements and stuff. And I'm from Jersey and I'm just like, okay, I just, all right. So help me convert stuff. So I've been, like I said, I started my first job was at a pet store and as a reptile, person, when I was 14, and a Savannah monitor was the first monitor I got. I think like most people, they are the introductory pet trade monitor, unfortunately. And yeah, I've just kind of kept up on it. I consider myself a hobbyist that's just been very lucky. Never wanted to be big, Kai, as you said. Like I kind of keep my personal life personal and my reptile life separate and stuff. But I'm also in Jersey. It's really complicated to keep monitors in Jersey. Like I mean, if I can move out west and keep things in like a backyard, and fenced in, awesome. But winter sucks. So,
yeah. Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, you get cold.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, what I'm doing now too is like I'm just focusing on. So, I got out of it for a bit, right? Like 2007 was when I did that article. Kind of moved around a bit and got rid of my collection and stuff. And 6 years ago, I came across at a mom and pop store this rather unique monitor, Savannah monitor, right? And it was all striped, and it's that striped female that I've had. I was just like, there's something to it. And I had never seen one like that. I know there have been one or two in the forums and stuff online, but I hadn't been in the forums in a while and I hadn't looked at anything online. So, I picked it up and, I picked up her. I picked up another one at a show. And, I just stayed with the basics of what I did last time, changed some things. I've read that article. And I'm like, God, I would never feed the turkey diet thing the way I was doing ever again. But we can go into that tangent later. And no, it was successful. And what was really cool was stripes come out of breeding stripes. So like there's something to it. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm thinking it might be an incomplete codominant pattern, the way that it's been lining up and stuff. But that's what I'm working on. Seeing if I can
call them stripes or bandits.
I named them bandits, but a lot of people now that they've been coming out, like just stripes seems to be easier. I like to call them bands because they're not really stripes. They're if you look at them, they're merged ocelli, right? Like they're merged dots, and so they're thicker. And I think of them as bands.
Yeah. For whatever reason, for me, my simple way is if it goes from head to tail, it's striped, and if it goes from side to side, it's a band. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Vertical and horizontal, right? Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. That's the other way I look at it too. It's also just like, is it really a line, or do you get this like nice little marbly pattern, which seems to be what happens,
Yeah. Oh, I think that has a ton of potential though, just showing what you have already. And we'll get to introducing you at the end, so people can come, or Sharon, where people can find you towards the end. But we'll definitely direct the listeners to that so they can go check it out if they're not familiar with it already and what you've been doing. So, so you picked up this girl, and so were you completely out of everything at the time, out of reptiles?
Yeah, I did. Cause for a little bit I had moved to Virginia for work, and I had to like liquidate the collection. I wasn't going to move everything and stuff. So I was completely out of everything except like one ball python, like a leopard gecko. And then all of it started again 6 years ago. Right now I got the Bell's lace. I've got a pair of blue tails. I got a pair of roughnecks and stuff. It's like all of a sudden it blew up because like, it's like Pringles, you can't have just one, and you always got to get everything in sets. And now I've also kept, I'm going to be into my, this is my second and third clutch of F2s of this line. So now I have 9 Savannahs themselves, just all related to that pod, so it's crazy.
And Savannahs,
that's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Savannahs aren't huge, but they definitely are not small. And if you have an army of them, then,
Yeah, and they eat of all the modern. They really do eat like tanks, man, and it's a lot to be feeding a lot of bugs all the time. It's a little nuts, but they got a special place.
Did you ever keep Savannahs, Kai?
As like a teenager, and I've rescued a couple and had them maybe for a few months, but I often just rehouse them. Yeah. To be honest, they're not exactly my cup of tea. Exactly, I guess they're cool. They're just, me, I'm just a mangrove guy, really. Even like, I'll choose a mangrove over a lace monitor, and that's just me,
Yep.
It's
man. So go ahead. I'm cutting you off.
Yeah, it's just rescues and a couple when I was younger, and that's it.
I think it's something. There's the people that they like the head of like the you could say lace monitor or even Nile monitor, something along those lines, especially in the mid-size to larger monitors. when it's smaller monitors, I don't think it matters too much to people. It's like you can collect them all almost, but when you have to make choices for where your space goes, people kind of, it seems like they fall in one camp or the other. And then there's some people that just love that chunky blockhead look of the Savannah and, or like the white throats and black throats too. That just, it is something different. And I didn't really get it until you could see them, but, until I kept one for a little while, and it was just like, or kept a couple for a little while. And yeah, they're monitors. There's no doubt they're monitors, but they're just like, I don't know.
They're unique. They're less snaky than most of the other even of the African species, right? Like you got Niles, ornates, then you've got like Iranian deserts and stuff. Australians, they've all got this very snaky look to them, right? This very dragony look. And then you got that, for lack of a better term, because of my kid, they're the Stegosaurus of the monitors, right? Like they're that version of it. Like everyone wants the T-Rex, but they're the Stegosaurus. But they're kind of cool. I mean, I love all my monitors in fairness and stuff. I never signed up to be like, I'll be the Savannah guy, but okay. And I mean, everyone's got a thing, so why not?
You run with it. You're like you mentioned,
a big feat.
Yeah. You said F2s. I don't know if there's too many other people in the U.S. that have ever done that. To your knowledge, is there anybody else that's there's claims?
That has done it? There's claims. Has anyone actually I mean, there's definitely claims. I mean, I know that, obviously I think we all know Dean and we know Rowan and stuff. I don't know if they ever got to F2, but I know that they had F1s. And then there was a guy named, I saw him on the forums once, but I never really got a chance to chat with him. His name was Andrew, I think, but I can't remember his last name. But apparently, and all this, right? So like Dean, Rowan, they all started, because I remember they had each reached out to me. I want to say back in 2016, 2017 or whatever. We just had like these little chats, like one of them was even on LinkedIn, reached out to me at one point, having seen the BioWack article and stuff, and all their first stuff was done in like 2017, 2018, 2019. And I think this guy, Andrew, had in 2019 had an F1 set and grew them up. And then in like 2022 or 2023 or whatever, it just had his F2s. But again, I mean, everything's just what you put up on pictures, like like what I try and do now is like, I'm just trying to kind of like not pedigree them, but like, I'll give you the egg that they came and I'll show you pictures of the parents. And like, I kind of like walk through and I'm just trying to document how long I've had everything, because what really sucked about that first clutch from 2004 was, she multi-clutched and must have had like 100 and something babies in total, like over 3 clutches, and had to find all of them homes. And it was not the type of industry that it was. And you can't even find those emails. And like, I mean, I kept everything. Yeah. And you can't even get a response back. Like no one's there anymore. So it's like to find if anything's still alive or research. Like I would love to know. And that would be like awesome, But.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. That, I know it's like that. And, I just see every once in a while I'll see people say, hey, I wish you could find captive bred Savannah monitors. And anytime I'm in the position to, I'm like, yeah, you can. They're there. I'll show you where. But even then, I mean, it seems like, they just kind of fall through the cracks sometimes, which is crazy to me. But I'm hoping to see where this goes. We've had a couple conversations, prior to this, and you have your people that love a certain type of animal, which I would say you definitely fall into that camp. And there's a few of us out there that can do the same thing, or at least appreciate those animals for what they are. You're up against the import market, and do
you find that very difficult where people hear your prices and then they obviously can go to a show and get them for $25? Do you
absolutely
find it very easy to sell, or you find it very hard to compete with?
So right now, because I'm small, I take care of my animals well, so they come first. Like I'm not like shoveling these out like a mill, but it's easy for me to sell because the people that want it see the value in what they are and what they're getting, right? But do I get a lot of inquiries, and do I get a lot of pushback of like, you're not? I love this one, and I have had this conversation with Rowan, because this was like some of the feedback he got, and it was very reminding of what it was like in the early 2000s. So like, it's a Savannah monitor. Why do you want one so bad? If that's the value you place on right there, if that's the tone of voice, it's a Savannah monitor. Mm-hmm. Why do you want one? I mean, you're already acknowledging it's disposable, and you're not going to give it the care. And now husbandry's changed drastically in the last 20 years, right? Especially for this species. Like, you're not going to put the time and effort into it. Honestly, it's probably easier for you to get like anything else. Go get a $6,000 lace monitor. It's probably a little bit easier and less complicated than them. And you're just very dismissive. Yeah. So I've gotten that kind of feedback, and that was, I think that's why a lot of people that have done it, once they get rid of that first set, because they seem to be very prolific, if the female doesn't burn out and die, it's a lot of babies. It's a lot of mouths to feed, I mean, if you can't move it. But so far, I think the appeal of what I'm working on, though, is that banded pattern. The fact that it's not your atypical, the fact that having started out in like the regular retail pet store industry as a kid, what used to come in as imports too, I remember weekly shipments coming in and stuff from Cal Zoo. They were our importer, right? Yeah. And we used to work with them all the time, call and get orders. But you would always get these beautiful, like what I provide, like that was kind of the standard. And we were just a mom and pop pet store in Jersey. So it seems like now, so much collection's been going on. You're atypical. And I think you were saying this, Alan, is like, you go to a show, a big show, and it's like you got a box of brown, dehydrated, gray baby monitors, and it's like it's not even the same stuff.
Yeah. They look horrible. I mean, they're on death's doorstep. Yeah, and it's so sad. And for a lot of people out there, it's like it's unfortunate. I think I don't know. I don't want to be that.
It's not to take over what you're saying. It's I'm in the similar boat, right? Not exactly the coli. There's not exactly huge demand for them, but let's just say the typical average Varanus indicus, right? The Solomon Island stuff. They come in, you buy 5 from a wholesaler, you could get them for $50-$60 each, Yeah. So they're along the lines of one of those disposable cheap monitors, right? And so I've had to deal with a lot of people going, oh, why are you wanting to charge half of $1,000 or several $100 for a mangrove? And even if I find that they're amazingly gorgeous animals, they're captive bred, and mine are a little bit different than just the typical two. They have a little bit more blues, and the colors show up a little bit more, but the rarity too, right? And doing these species like Niles, Savannahs, mangroves, a few other species that are basically kind of disposable for what the conversation was just a minute ago about, oh, it's just a Savannah, it's just a mangrove. Why do you want to charge that much? I mean, because we put a lot of work into it, and that's what I feel like is, even when you do the calculations, we're not even breaking even, We just want to make some money, put some money back into it. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm a businessman. I'm also trying to be a little bit compassionate and not charge you an arm and a leg. But if I were to do the math with it, it probably costs $1,000, easy, with rent and electricity, supplies, cost of enclosures, whatever, right? And that's daily, or that's all the time, the food and everything like that. So when you're thinking about large enclosures and doing it like that, and I'm in a similar boat with you. If we're talking about basically people seeing these monitors as cheap disposable stuff, and why even bother, right? And so that's why not a lot of people have dedicated what you're doing and what some other people are doing for these underrated species, and they deserve a lot more respect. I've said it time and time again, but I stick with the mangroves, and it's not me personally that's, driving the name and making them more popular or anything like that. But I am, staying consistent with it, and other people are basically following along or falling in love with the mangroves themselves, and they push their own love. And that's how we kind of, draw in more and more people to what we like. Right. And having the respect for it as well, not just showboating them around and, things like that. Right. So, yeah, man, I kind of see what you're going through, and when you're looking at it and trying to do line breeding, and that's kind of what I'm doing too, is trying to make really pretty ones, so there is a somewhat of a difference and things like that. But yeah, I kind of get it all the time where people are like, hey, I can buy this for $150. Well, dude, go do it. There's just a big difference between what you're getting and what I'm getting and what I'm giving you. I took a lot of effort to do what I do and to hatch them out, not even prolifically. For savannas or other African monitors like white throats and black throats, they lay a lot of eggs,
right.
20, 30, 40 eggs. But my indica stuff, 3 to 5 eggs, maybe, so it's those numbers. I've kind of just taken a step back from wanting to, I guess, fall into the trap of the hobby, putting pressure on you to breed and breed and breed and breed and breed. And really, I'm just trying to fall back in love with just keeping and just having fun with it, even if I breed or not, and hatch out stuff or not. I do try somewhat, but I don't beat myself up about it. You know what I mean? And the industry, the customers, I love my customers. Don't get me wrong, but the ones that do what they do with price gouge, they say you're price gouging or why are you charged so high? Those are the people that I kind of that get turned off by. You know what I mean? Just the whole customer service aspect of it and things like that. And nowadays, I don't even try to do a whole lot with pushing what I produce. If people message me, those are the ones that want it. Those are your people, the ones that are willing to support you, pay the price, whatever it takes. And it's a tough battle sometimes because of imports, right? The regular amounts of Niles and savannas and mangroves and whatever else come in, until those borders say stop, right? Which there's always a scare, right? They're always saying borders are going to stop and they're going to stop importing, or maybe there's some big law like what Australia did where they say, no outside animals, right?
Right.
Then what? Then your savanna is going to be like $1,000.
Yeah.
They're gonna then people are gonna be like, oh, we can't get savannas anymore, and now what, right?
Right.
So
and then
we do the hard work, man.
The silly part for a while after, this is all hypothetical, but if that situation happens, then it's like it'll take some years for people to get out of the idea like, oh, well, Africa shut down. I want to get a savanna monitor. What do you mean you're charging more than $25? I used to get handfuls of them it's like, well, yeah, those days are over, buddy. And that was never my animals anyway. These were always captive bred and the quality that goes into these. And there's kind of like that couple of years for the regular market to catch up to understanding that sometimes. You see it like with all the Timorensis species now with just things closing down. So, that kind of stuff happens out there too. But I also wanted to, and I know I've told this to you, Jay, before, but I think savannas I'm not a huge morph guy, just across the board with a lot of things. There's a few out there that I actually do like. They're just cool looking animals. But I think savanna monitors are one of those that would lead themselves very well to either morphs or line breeding for certain characteristics, whether it's certain colorations or, like you said, the bandids. Because right now we have that access to a large number of animals. So
right.
At the same time, we can be like, well, I wish it wasn't that way. it's like that double-edged sword. It's like taking advantage of the other side. So I've known personally, if I see something cool pop up, I'm going to try to get it into your hands. And whether, we need to take out a second mortgage, we'll go joint on it or something. We'll figure it out. But for someone
albinos come in more often than not, right? They come in every few years, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly, no one has sent me a picture of one except the one that they say Kevin has at Nerd, and he's had that thing so long.
Who knows, right?
I believe it's still alive, but I'm like, where are the others?
Right.
Where are the other? There's got to be at least one other one out there, right? I would love it. That'd be great.
I've seen pictures of different albinos. There are actual animals here that you could see were in the hands of someone here. It's not like they were just a picture of something, but they were in people's hands here at one point. And I mean, amazing albinos. So different types of albinos, of course. Some were like more orange or even red looking than some of these like real light yellow or cream looking animals. But my thing is like, hey, monitor community and the people that might listen to this, get together. If you see this, contact Jay.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah. Talk to me. Let me know.
Put it in somebody's hands that can get something done with it.
It is really funny that you say that about the different types of albinos, and especially in Savannah. So when I was a kid, one of the first ones I had, now that I was probably like 17 at the time, was, I mean, now looking back, and I wish I had picture, like this is like one of those things where it's like there weren't cameras like we have today, so like all the pictures are gone and like destroyed, from years of moving. But like it was pink. It was a pink monitor with red eyes, but it was a Savannah monitor, not a lick of brown or yellow on it. And it's like, hindsight being like, that was an albino of sort, like that was albinism in Xanthematicus, and I'm like, damn it. But mind you, this was like someone's turned in pet at the store. My manager at the time was like, don't want it. You can just take it. Don't eat it in the store. Thing was hugely overweight. Huge. Like the thing's name was, the name was Buddha. And it was a very big girl. And, but she was solid pink, man. Like you could hardly see the ocelli against how pink she was.
Oh man.
Like she had to be in the right light and stuff, and she had red eyes. And now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, all these years later, I wish I had a picture of it, because it's like, damn it. But shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I know, man. I just think, and there's that other one that came in a couple years ago that I think I sent you the picture of. It's like real gray with bands on the back.
Right.
Man,
yeah.
I'm like, where did that thing go? What happened to it? I tried very hard to buy that thing, but I didn't. Yeah, it left before I got my hands on it. So
it's the one thing about this species that kills me is you have people that try and grab, and then you never hear about them again.
Right.
And because they're so notoriously hard to keep and breed, which I honestly have, we can get into that later. I don't know why. It should be, easier because there is some documentation now. I mean, these things, it's definitely better than 50-50 odds that it's dead, that it's not alive anymore. And that gets me every time. I'm like, ugh. But you know what? There's not enough room or time for me to rescue every ornate Savannah monitor that comes into the country. So, but for listeners, if you do see something, say something.
Please. Yeah, please. So let's jump off there. Kai, actually, now that, hold on, let me go back to that real quick. Kai comes across some crazy stuff sometimes. So Kai, if you see one of those, he'll just be like, hey, did you see this? I'm like, what? No. When did you see that? That was a year ago.
People, I apologize to anybody that's kind of been messaging me lately and sending me that stuff. To be honest, I'm kind of grasshoppered out. And so I don't have a whole lot of energy for a bunch of other stuff to carry on conversations for a whole long time. And I might heart it and something like that. But occasionally, guys like Ben or Ketzel or Robert Spracklin or even John, even just the regular keepers that are just it landed at their pet store, and they're like, hey man, check this out. Like, what is it? And it's something very odd off, It just what I've been seeing a lot are silver spot peach throats, right? I see those now, and people just think that they're an ugly peach throat, and so they end up in who knows, right? But for me, as a not just an indicus guy, but um, a, a person that likes the rarity of stuff, that silver spot peach throat not just costs more, but is also more rare than the other stuff you see coming in. You know, granted, it's not as yellow or orange or reddish, but it in itself is a gorgeous animal. You know, basically, it's just a dark peach throat, right? And when they get older, it shows much better.
Yeah.
And just things like that, you know. So I run across things all the time. Savannah's not so much, but I think it's just because that's, you know, people know that's not really my cup of tea, and so but yeah, man.
Well,
a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff. So.
We'll drum up some interest with this episode. We'll make a coalition and try to
see what comes in.
Yeah, hit up some people and be like, hey, when it comes,
the facilitators.
Yeah, exactly. But all right, let's get it. You kind of touched on it already, Jay, but just why has this been so hard? And you know, what are you doing? How are you doing it?
Oh, yeah. So, and famous last words, right? What works for me may not work for everyone else. But I do think, so Savannah's, it's so funny. And I don't know why it's so difficult to just like Google search places like Ghana and Africa and look at things and stuff. But the lack of information and research done up front is what kills me, because like, you know, if you look up Savannah monitor, like one of the first, desert monitor pops up, right? And clearly it's not even like in the name, right? They are not a desert monitor. And what I do see, and what a lot of us see that have kept them, is they're kept too dry, too hot. I mean, where they come from, Ghana is tropical. It has a dry season, but it's humid. It's tropical Africa. They have a wet season, man, and it gets hot. Right. And you know, and if you look at the map, it's all the green part of the coast, right? Like from all the way down to the Congo, the strip, right? And I think that's the first thing. And people just like, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I don't know how. I know I'm a little older than both of you, so like, you know, I kept my first monitors on Keeper's Choice. Do you guys remember that?
Oh,
betting that substrate? Worst thing in the world to put a Savannah monitor on. Worst thing in the world. Oven dried, sterilized wood chips, like. Really, really stupid. Should have things that we just didn't know. And yeah, I mean, so I think the problem is, and there's also that conception of like, I keep dating myself. So Reptiles Magazine, 1996, there was a great publication. I think Daniel and Robert actually co-wrote it or something. I'd have to go back and see if I still got it in a drawer somewhere. But one of the things that was in there, and not them recommending it, but like what the industry thought, that you could feed Triumph cat food to a Savannah monitor as a staple.
Yeah.
So Triumph cat food was a brand of cat food that was considered, you know, it would be considered like your Blue Buffalo or like Wild Grain, like today, what was like 90s, 2000s, like decent, good cat food, but like Triumph turkey or chicken cat food. And that was a staple. Yeah. And it's like, man, like, so, but the thing is, it's amazing. They're like one of the few species where the current information has not caught up, and kids 20 years old go to a show and they take their monitor home, and I'm seeing it on the forums, and I have a few other buddies that are in the groups and stuff on Facebook, and they send me these pictures too, and they're like, say something, and I'm like, you can't. It's not, because someone did this to me too with a sale too. They're like, well, you're not going to change the pet industry with that. I'm not here to change an industry. I can educate, but sometimes the toxicity of it is just so much. And it's like,
it's draining.
It's draining. You know? And it's like, I don't want to deal with these people, and I'm sorry, but at the same time, that is the problem. I mean, the background knowledge is just horrible. And it's like, there's so much good information out there now. I don't know why people don't leverage their resource. It's laziness, but it's the same people, right, that are like, why are you charging that? And it's like, well, if you can't buy this up front for what I'm charging, you can't maintain this because you have no idea what you're getting into.
Right.
So that I can maybe save you a little bit, Jay, I'll go ahead and say it. And I think I've upset some people already on certain social media pages that maybe have to do with the species we're talking about. But for those that are interested in the species, you will probably find that Facebook group. And if you look around and you see a lot of people that have been keeping them for a very long time, however, there's only a handful of people that have ever bred them in the U.S. And please understand, you're going to get that argument that, well, there's more to keeping than breeding and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get it. You just want a pet. However, please understand that if somebody out there, such as Jay, is able to take that animal, that species, and take care of them in a way that allows them to breed and then allows multiple generations of that, that's a more well-rounded way of keeping than just keeping one animal till it gets old. Okay. He's having to supply that animal for all of its needs, including reproduction, which is much more natural than just keeping that one-off animal in a room somewhere in your house or in your apartment. Okay. When people go for like, well, naturalistic this, there's nothing more natural for this animal than its goal of reproducing. You can meet that. If you meet that goal, guess what? You're on the right track. All right. So if you're going to ask questions, ready for a full inbox here, Jay, or just seek out that information that's out there. It's easy to listen to the fanboy group and they're going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff until you have a dead or sick animal sometimes. Okay. They will continue to tell you to do the same thing that's not working. And that just gets under my skin. I've had to get into argument. I don't like to argue with people, and I don't try to come off with this huge ego, but it's like, here's your eyes looking at your animal that's telling you this animal's not doing good. Here's the information these people are giving you, and it's not going well. Fix it. It doesn't take a lot. Just realize that's not working. Try something else and take on everything that works. And truthfully, there's a saying, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. Once you have a healthy animal, you can try a few different things. No one person can do it all. We all learn by doing different things together. You might unlock something to this that other people don't know. However, start from a healthy animal and then branch out with those experiments. Don't start from a sick animal and then try to experiment with it like you're going to bring it back to life or bring it back to health or whatever the situation may be. Again, tangent, but I get very frustrated. Listen, too.
I will. The times where I do answer and jump in or I'll opine is I will always have great respect for someone saying, I am thinking about getting XYZ monitor. Yeah. What do you recommend? What do I need to know? When you say, I went to the show, I picked this up, what do I do? It's already too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and what's bothersome is that impulse buy. It's like, this is not, listen, be a toy collector, be a model printer, be a car collector. Like, it's a living thing. Don't be an impulse buy on a living thing. I mean, you're accountable for its life. Like, like in the end, if it dies, it's on you. Like, it's not cool. And that one kills me. But I will always take someone that's like, what do I do beforehand before they get it? That I'll address.
Right.
To give it the opportunity of fairness. And believe me, there are plenty of times I've told people, you don't want that monitor. Like, I will recommend, get this, get that, get something else. Like, you don't want this, or you need a leopard gecko. You are not in the monitor market. It's the politest way possible, and just run with that.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's good.
It's some people will argue, but I think Savannahs compared to some other monitors are much more difficult. I think we all know, the diet for one, and things like that, and just upkeeping, just that alone is expensive. It's hard to find really big bugs or things like that. And so compared to something that you could just feed mice and chicks and fish and stuff like that all the time versus something that's a little bit more needy with its diet, I find that to be more difficult. That just in my opinion, And a lot of us used to feed them very incorrectly until, people like Bennett or field herping expeditions, or even the guys that are, finding dead savannas and opening up their guts to, see what's inside. That really tells us the whole idea of what it's like to have one of these things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
On top of what you mentioned earlier about, people thinking that a savanna is like a desert,
Right? It's
when,
like, it kills me. Like, no.
yeah, and so it's during part of that wet season, it's basically a lush land. There's pools and ponds everywhere, high grass, and just a whole lot of abundance, right? And yeah, man, it's just I see it all the time in the groups where there's still no regular common ground. It's still either the guys that are like, like you, right, doing pretty good work, basically promoting the best for them. And then there's people that are still, just feed them mice and rats and cat food, and they keep them in like, single dimension type cages, and they're just with a little half log and a water dish and a branch, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just it's tricky. It's tricky because, like, even back then, you'd be able to achieve a little bit more with the forums because, it wasn't 10 million people on it. But now with Facebook and these groups that are, thousands and thousands of members strong, and they all believe in the same thing, it's kind of, you're going to sound crazy. You know what I mean? Right? You're going to sound crazy talking to these people. And so,
oh yeah, it's such a cult that they don't want to hear. If you have a different idea, something that's working for you, they don't want to hear it. Right. It's like, oh wait, nope. The admins have said it this way. Please look at the pinned information at the top. This is our Bible. And it's like, what? That's not working though.
Yeah.
I was part of a group that I had left where I had been contacted by an admin for uploading to the files tab my Biowac article. Like, this is not for breeding monitors. This group. I was like,
yeah,
it's a care and husbandry. You can't breed monitors without care and husbandry. Like, I was just like, what?
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, no, thank you. We appreciate it. But like, we're not going to post it because we don't want people to breed irresponsibly. Yeah. The most highly imported monitor, people are going to try and breed irresponsibly. Like, first they need to take care of it. Well, take some notes. Like, I was a little floored. So needless to say, I'm not part of that group anymore.
And for like anybody that's, hopefully we have listeners that may be, let's just say there's sides, right? There's our side and your side. And let's just say you do listen to this just because it's a monitor podcast. There's not very many. And I don't want to be the person that has to, draw a line between me and you. It's kind of a thing where, hey, we're trying to show ideas, and you can accept them or not. Some things are very clear in fact with science, though. Okay, these lizards and what Jay was kind of mentioning, we're trying to do best by them, and a lot of times that just the topic alone is, I'm not trying to breed my monitors. I'm not trying to breed what I have, so I'm not going to put a lot of soil. I'm not going to worry about depth in soil. I'm not going to, things like that, right? I don't care about it laying eggs because I'm not trying to breed it. What you kind of know as a keeper, and I would say, how do I say this without sounding rude too? Okay. It's just because you don't want to breed it doesn't stop the biology of this animal.
Yes.
That's as clear as I can say it, where this female, now we're not even really worried about the males too much, right? But the males can use some digging mental stimuli too, right? And it also helps with humidity, and he'll have his own pocket to dig in. But we're really worried about the females because we know in statistics, most females, especially back then, now it's a little bit better because we're working collectively together as to save animals, especially these females. Most of them only live about a year, maybe 2 years, until they basically reach sexual maturity, go through poor husbandry again and again and again, be basically chronically dehydrated or whatever they are, poorly fed, things like that, right? Improper heat, basically the whole list of improper husbandry, right? And if you don't apply a adequate laying option for your female, she's going to croak. She's going to get egg bound, or there's going to be some type of tough situation where you might have to take it to the vet, or she starts scattering eggs everywhere. She ends up with 1 or 2 stuck in her. Just things like that, where even if for your keepers that are just pet owners, you have a Savannah, you just got a Savannah, you've had one for a little while, it is important for you to look at the soil depth. And I don't even want to be playful and just say a sandbox, like how a lot of people are just cheaping. It's kind of like a cheat way to apply that when you're not even fully doing it correctly, right? Depth in soil, the consistency in moisture, the consistency and type of soil, sandy soil, the temperature that it is for them to lay in, all of these things are going to be a very, very, I would say, what you're trying to achieve for your enclosure, but also trying to achieve for your female that will likely be laying, given she reaches sexual maturity, or you go from feeding, very light meals to heavy meals, or just the season changing, and bam, she starts to, develop.
Yeah.
And so, we may have you guys listening, because, this podcast is available to everybody. And it is important to understand that just because you don't want to breed them doesn't change their biology and what they're going to do naturally. And so if you love your Savannah, obviously, people get them and there's some type of endearment there, go the full route. Try to, it might not be a thing where you learn this in a day, in just, reading it and, oh, this is what I have to do. Man, it took me probably years to fully understand how to do a nesting box or a nest bin or ground floor nesting options correctly. And I'm just really getting to the whole cage setup instead of using a bin. So there's, like I said, there's many ways to kind of go about it, but take your time to, kind of do it this way, what you think is right and what is actually working for your female. What we might show you, or what another breeder might show you, or what another, I don't know, another Facebook group has a pinup, right? That may not work for you. And your female, let's just say it's a nest bin, and let's say it's a bin in a bin method, right? So we know that as a bin with a heat pad on it sitting inside another bin, so the heat pad's protected. You can use that, and if your female doesn't like it, and that's a factoring thing in many setups for a lot of us, the nest bin, that specific one, right? And it may not work for you. And your female will tell you that just by her digging and digging and digging, not being satisfied. Her digging and digging, laying partly there, laying somewhere else, not even laying it on, So all these
checking
things
it out
are
and never going in there again.
Yeah, and these things are factors that a lot of us use, but your female will tell you.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn kind of the hard way sometimes, or I'll catch them while they're frustrated, because it'll be time. A lot of times I've had females go down and lay that night, and the next morning, boom, they're done. But I've had females go down, dig, push the soil, go to another area, dig, push the soil, go to another area, and she's just exhausted. That is basically, an indication that she's not finding what she wants. And for you guys that are listening that are just pet keepers, we welcome you to do what you like with your animals. But just remember that, if you really love them and there's a chance you have a female, or you don't even know, I always recommend deep bedding, and at the very least, have a bin with some soil so they can work out of. And
You sound a lot nicer than I was.
Well, I mean, with the substrate thing too, it's a security thing. All monitors are secretive. Like, you don't just go to Africa and see a monitor walking around. Sometimes you do, but like, they all need a security thing. And the old classic wood log that flips over easy, that they go on. I mean, they're not a ball python. They're not just going to sit there and hardly move. They're very active animals. They need a den. They need walls that don't really move, that they can back into. They find a lot of other animal holes that are already dug, and they take them over, and they dig a lot, and they will make networks and stuff. And some monitors now we know Penops, they will dig feet and feet and feet across a network, almost like a freaking gopher. So, it's a security thing. And, a secure animal is going to be an easier animal to handle. It's going to have less stress factors. If it's an import, it's going to be easier to treat for things, because stress weakens the reptile immune system, right? It does even for humans, but it really tanks. And you get RIs, and you get, not eating, and all this crazy stuff. And it's all stress related because their life has been stressful. They were put on a boat, and it took 4 weeks to get over here, and they had no food and no water. And they're usually just a couple weeks out of the eggs, or just plucked from the tree. Nothing about their life has been not stressful. Never mind the fact that instinctually they're like, everything's going to eat me. So, it's just, do them a favor. You want to feel secure, give them some security.
So let's do that. Let's because we went off on, I guess, another tangent a little bit, but maybe let's start there with obviously you've made your own babies. Let's say that the person that's listening, they want to go, and they're going to go get that baby from the reptile store or the show, just like a lot of us have. What would you advise them to do? How would you set up your babies?
So, right. Okay. So I'm a little, so like when they're brand new babies, and I don't know if you guys, have really seen them like right out the egg before, but they are the size of Savannah eggs are funny. They are as big as leopard gecko eggs, and they come out as big as leopard geckos. They are really, really crazy. Tiny for a monitor. When you think of other monitors that are already like 8 inches long, right? Like, and you think of like a water monitor, and this is a big thing, and it gets bigger quickly, but they are small. So like, I'm a little funny about putting them like right on bedding. Like, I like to do a nice humid like box. My lighting, they get underbelly heat. I keep them on paper towel and stuff, just because as they start feeding and stuff, and I know in the wild people are like, oh, they eat dirt all the time and they get bugs and stuff. It's not a confined space, right? And I'm working in a confined space, and I try and keep them individualized, right, and stuff. So that's how I set them up. If you're going to take one home, though, as big a tank as you can start with. I always recommend starting with a 20 long to start, because what you want to do is you do want to get a good compacted soil mix if you're going to keep them on a bedding that will maintain moisture that they really can't eat. Like, I like to use like the big chunk core kind of on top of afterwards, stuff that they can't swallow. But underneath that is my base mix, which has been the same since the article. And I think it's so funny. I don't want to say like I started the mix thing, because probably Frank Reitz, actually, I remember in the forums, kind of already had like a base of it, whatnot. But like the ratio stuff of like sand to core to clay or loam or whatever you can get, like that's what I was working with even back then. And I've kind of stuck to the same recipe, right? Because it should kind of dry out on top and crust over a bit, but should be really humid and underneath, and be able to like not crumble, but definitely pull away in like chunks and stuff. And they love that. So like, even if you use small stone, but that's like your number one. The other thing is like not too much heat. And I don't like open screen tops for a baby. They are born in the wet season. If you look at a baby's skin right out the egg, and you look at an adult, those bony, thick plates and the spacing on them and stuff, that's a maturity thing. They come out and they're like small, wet leather, and you can see it in any reptile show where they've just come in, how dehydrated they are. A Savannah monitor will literally hydrate if you just put it in a bowl of water. It's amazing how quickly they will blow up, right? So you can easily tell. So like, I like either like use plexiglass or something, cover most of that top, keep the humidity. I like to stay above 55 to 60, 70 is primo for newborns. 70 to 80 is actually fine. And then of course, many different hiding spots. They will dig themselves, but until they really get into the digging and stuff, many little spots, because they are going to move all day, every day, all around the thing and spin around and cover a lot of area. And then that other thing is like a low water bowl. Like they will always find water, but I find, because they're so tiny, the shallower the water bowl, the easier for them to get in and get out. And then of course, supplementation and UVA, UVB. Savanna monitors grow exponentially so quickly compared to other monitors because of how tiny they are and then how big they become, right? Like within 2 years' time, you get this full-grown adult male, right? They are so one thing I've learned doing this is, of all the monitors, supplementation is so important because they will get MB really, really quick. Like they will get rubbery really fast. You need to supplement them often. You need to change your bulbs every 3 to 6 months, or you need to get them outside because they are growing so quickly these first couple of months. By the time you actually get one in the store and it's this big, it's already 4 months old. I mean, that's how quickly they're growing. So, I mean, they're prone to vitamin deficiencies really, really easy, which is the other big issue because they're already on an insect-based diet. Now in the wild, those things are eating things all the time and stuff, but supplementation is also important. So there's that. And then like ambient temps, man. I mean, it's tropical Africa, but like never really below. I don't let anything really fall below 82 on like a cool end. The ambient temp, like I stick to like 88 air. And like for a baby, I know adults, 140, 160 watt bulb hotspot. Babies, you will bake them 120 max. And like I find like in the center of or off center and away from the bowl because they dry out super quick.
Yeah.
But those are like the minimums, and the thing is that's only going to last you like 2 months. By the time they're this big, by the time they're as big as your hand, they need to be like in a 40 or in a 30, or go get your first custom. And if you're keeping a few of them, I mean, you can keep a few of them together, but if you've got 3 or 4 baby monitors, you need, a 4 by 2 by 2, just to start, to have the right depth,
I think it surprised me raising one was that I think it's deceiving because of their proportions and what I'm used to as far as other monitors. Even Ackies I would consider little tanky animals, but they do, in comparison, have a very long tail. And like you said, babies can almost start out the same size. But the proportion of the Savannah monitors, not only the head size, I mean, everything, how short their little stub tails are, it's really cute. Yeah. But the explosive growth in those was absolutely, insane, even compared to the other species that I've kept. And it probably did fool me because of the proportions of the body. But they grow fast if kept right. They just explode. And I really couldn't believe it. I think from the time I had the one in particular that I got was from John over at or Sim Container, and it's a really great looking animal. And Jay, you're familiar with it, but of course, I think it was oversold in some edited pictures to when it came into John. So I think whoever over there in Ghana or wherever it was coming from really saturated the yellow, and it is an amazing animal still, but they were looking for a couple extra bucks from somebody, and so John got it in. I think even the post he made was like, oh man, I got but it was a great looking animal. Yeah, so I took it off his hands, and that was it was a fun experience as far as raising monitors. And maybe because it was different for me, a different species, but raising a Savannah monitor was it was a lot of fun. That's what I could say. It's maybe it's mid-size. I have a lot of fun with mid-size monitors too, like the sand monitors, even the blue tails are fun. But I think that attitude that comes with them, that the way they puff up, the hiss, they'll take a bug off the tongs from you and then look at you and hiss at you like they're going to do something. And it's, this little curved body, they curve in this chunky head and the little stub tail, man. They're a little endearing. They sure are. yeah,
personality.
the explosive growth on them. Like you said, I think I did start with a 20 gallon or somewhere near that to start. And like, I think it was like 3 months. I was like, I got to move this thing into something.
Yeah, else. It doesn't last long.
No. So yeah, I think it went into a 4x2x2 after that. And then eventually, you know, the large enclosure, but I cutting off, you know, go ahead. We're at 4x2x2 in 4 months or so.
No. But I think the only other thing I would say, like a soaking program is super important. Like, again, they dehydrate so quickly. I soak every 2 days, like regularly. Like I take them out, put them in a bin. I give them a chance to just really hydrate for a good hour in there, you know, shoulder height and stuff. And because until that skin changes and you know, those bony plates come in and stuff, they just seem to like wick moisture away. And it's something, you know, it's funny too, because I got a few messages last week. Some people were sending me, you know, pictures and stuff, and they're like, why does my monitor look like this? And it's like almost like flecking, you know, like felting. And I'm like, it's layers and layers of dead skin. Like, you need to soak your monitor and like with a soft baby toothbrush, like gently exfoliate like it. But again, too dry. I'm like, let me see your setup. And the thing is on calci sand with a fake cactus with clearly a 150 watt bulb on there. And I'm like, yeah, too dry. And the bedding's like this. I'm like, soak your animal a lot, throw all that out, get this. You know, but it's really that. And then, you know, you're feeding. Be ready to feed something. These are not snakes. Monitors, we all know this. They're not snakes. They are active eaters. They will eat every day if given the opportunity. And this is a highly, you know, low fat, high protein eating animal. Lots and lots and lots of bugs. The quicker you can get them on like freeze-dried grasshoppers or canned snails, your life will be easier. I kind of do, you know, I do dubia and I do hissers, and I make sure that I'm feeding, you know, fresh, soft babies, you know, because again, I'm a little, you know, I'll get a lot of hate for this. They're like, in the wild, they'll be fine and stuff. In the wild, they also get eaten by everything. So, like, you know, I mean, my one little thing, I try and give them like the soft stuff until they're ready. But, you know, they're great. I'll say this. So one of I had mentioned this to you, Alan, that one of my animals ended up being acquired by the Norfolk, Virginia Zoo. And I mean, I had to go through a rigorous process for them to, you know, just check everything out. And, you know, I do my own, you know, treatments and tests and stuff, and had taken care of the parents, that first one, you know, from the store, a little bit of panicure and blah, blah, blah. And I ritualistically try and do that through the collection annually just for stuff and giggles. And, you know, everything came back positive, like, I mean, negative as in no parasites, no nothing. It's just amazing though, what, you know, there is something to captive bred. I mean, like, they come out healthy, and like that color, the changes and stuff, it is definitely a nutrition thing. And I don't have stuff living inside of me. The things I see online that are so dehydrated and malnourished, it's literally amazing what a healthy animal looks like.
So what you mentioned how's it working with hissers? I'll ask that question.
Good. They love them. And I actually just they really love them. The adults really, you know, appreciate the big ones. But like, you know, when the hissers are like a little bit bigger than nymph size, right? Like when they're still nice and soft and long, they go down real easy. And you know, they really do. Like, I think the only thing that stinks is like over the dubia, they really can climb anything. So it's like you're just kind of like always watching and stuff. But they eat so quickly. Like there's never many of them, you know, that live long enough. You know, before I have to worry.
I specifically for the little group of savannas I had for a little while, I was using those dusky cave, one of the cave roaches, a little bit bigger, a lot of wings though. They weren't crazy meaty, but that they were bigger than like the dubia, so they got a little more reaction sometimes from the bigger animals than a dubia walking by. But the rest of my monitors didn't like them, but they were one of the few, I guess, of the monitors that actually would still go after them and didn't care, you know, how they went down and slid down. So, but I always thought about working with hissers for the same reason. Of course, I didn't keep that project, but it was on my mind to start hissers.
I mean, they're definitely difficult to like get a colony started. It probably took me a full year where dubia just grow really quick, right? Throw them in a box, keep them warm, mist them. But like to get a good colony where I feel like, oh, I can feed a whole bunch of hissers off, and I have a whole bunch that are still growing. It took a good year because they just. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But I will also say this too. Grubs are really good, like waxworms and stuff. Like, I mean, because baby Savannah monitors too, in the wild, they are, grubby little beetle nymph feeders. So like waxworms are really good as a treat. Any type of caterpillar type thing is good. But that's really it. And I think the other thing that people need to do is don't dress them up. Don't put them on leashes. try and not do that. They don't like it. They really don't like it.
Yes, they do, Jay.
Yes, they do. This is when the monitor comes in. It's got a little pink collar on, a little bow, painted nails. I've seen that once or twice in my life.
Oh boy,
that's love. That is love.
Yeah. I'll stop there. I've said enough things today, but it's funny because there's a girl I know, and she has an awesome Savannah monitor. I had him for a little while. The idea was to pair up with that female. I don't think she was yet mature enough, and this was like one of her family members, and she's done a great job with him. He's an absolute beautiful animal, but she does like to take him on walks. I kept my mouth shut, and if she's listening, I'm sorry. It's just not for me, but you do take very good care of him, and he's a great guy. So keep at it. I can only say so much in that aspect, but yeah. So you're feeding those? Are you strictly bugs? Or are you?
No, I am not. I do so the bulk is bugs. I also feed. I've had really good luck, and I know I'm going to get flack for this. But Missouri, their insect chow, I get them on that as like a dry pellet. It's great for if you're going away. But their insect feeder chow, all my babies have gotten on it. Like I've had no problem acclimating the adults to it and stuff, and they love it. I mean, it's
really?
It's high protein, lean fat, and like if you're gonna want to just have like a bowl of dry food in there and stuff, they have really, there's something in there that's like crack to them, and they really love it. But I also do snails. I do quail. I do quail eggs, like whole, and frozen thawed. That's not the bulk of their diet. Those are like, few and far between, but they do on a regular basis, especially the females. Like I will definitely bulk her up with some quail eggs and some whole quail. When I'm getting ready to cycle her and introduce the male. So, but unfortunately they will eat anything you throw at them. So you have to be selective about their diet. But again, it's so simple. Just Google native flora of Ghana, and there's a wide variety of stuff you can get, that they are eating. Yeah. And snakes and small lizards, like I mean, unfortunately, I still have a couple ball pythons, and if something doesn't make it, or that it comes out, eggs fail or whatever, that is very natural and very healthy, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's very part of life, it's not done for that, but I mean, those are great. They're natural reptile feeders.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I told you this, Kai. This reminded me of this, but there was a time where I had a dud clutch of sand monitor eggs. I knew they were duds. So I throw, I think, a couple to the Savannah monitors, and then I throw the rest to the blue tails, right? And I forget about them. And I come back, I don't know if it's like a month later, but dirt gets kicked around all the time. Stuff gets buried, right? And so I just happen to be sifting dirt and changing it, and I find eggs in both enclosures, right? I'm like, oh, I must have missed this one, and the males got to, or somebody, this must have been on the surface infertile. So now I'm digging up, 2 yards of dirt with my hands and looking for more eggs. When it finally dawns on me, oh, that was that dud clutch you fed them, you dummy. But do you feed any? Yeah. Do you feed rodents, chicks, anything like that?
I will do chicks. Like if I can't get quails, I'll do chicks. There's nothing wrong with that and stuff. Rodents. I mean, if I do rodents, it's only it's not mice, it's rats, and it's like small or babies, and only for the adults, and only for that bulk. Again, calcium purposes, protein purposes. When I know that I'm getting ready to cycle her, it's not part of the staple. The bugs is the bulk of it, and the Missouri is a blessing because it's a lot of bugs.
Yeah. I know I was using, I'll probably catch flack for this too, but as that, the adults I was feeding the roaches, too, but not as much because those cave roaches just weren't prolific enough. And for the other two, I had two males. One was an older male, and then one I would say is maybe 4 years old or so at the time that I borrowed them. They did not seem to have a whole lot of love for the dubia. And I had a limited supply of those cave roaches just because I was learning how to keep that species. So they weren't that prolific. It took a little while to get them going and get the size that I needed. So I was feeding some mice, but mostly chicks or chick parts to them, and then having fun with whatever I'd go pick up at like the Asian markets, just to see if they would try it. And like you said, they were pretty opportunistic, so feeding on whatever. But
gizzards are really good. If you're going to do chicken parts, gizzards are like, heart, lungs, neck, that lean, that's good, especially like, babies growing quick and needing that and the iron content. That's always
I did have to do that every once in a while, but it was more, I wasn't breeding anything on my own yet. And this was like I think COVID years where, sometimes you just couldn't get, everything was kind of hard to get, or shipping. There were sometimes delays in shipping when you were expecting shipments of orders coming in or stuff like that. So I did use some of that for them sometimes, but I did use rodents because at the time I was also using some of that injectable calcium just to make sure they got enough. And it's really hard to inject other things, a roach with calcium.
Listen, it's all about moderation. Daniel was like, look, I've had conversations with Daniel. He wasn't like, oh, never. Like, it's moderate. Listen, a monitor will eat anything dead when it's hungry. Like if it's a dead rat in the street, it's going to eat it if it hasn't had anything else, if there's no options. But it's just, you can't be doing, and I'm guilty of it too, back in the day, you get like a box of 6 large mice and you throw it in there to that monitor and they will eat all 6 of them. And that was like the worst thing in the world for them,
Yeah, I tried, and I had the growing female, so I think there's an argument to be said about growing monitors and what they eat or females that are cycling. Yeah, and like a male, for instance, an adult male, and you're just constantly throwing rodents or something else at it, and that's But I guess we'll go another day for that whole conversation, but because it gets confusing if you're both saying, yeah, it's okay to do it, and at the same time, like you said, in moderation at the right times for the right animal. So that being said, I was just curious out there. So are you having success with using dubia with your adults? Are they still going after them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's really cool is I'll just get a nice big bowl and throw in both dubia and the hissers. They just, carte blanche. They're pretty happy with it.
Nice. Yeah, I think since I had more time with the female to raise that female and get her on that stuff, I think I had a lot more success because she loved going after them. It was a lot of fun seeing her go after them too, especially in a large cage. You throw a few in and where they're knocking stuff over, using that nose like a wedge and things and clawing at it and get them to run. And, of course, half the time a roach would get on their nose, run down the back. And I had a lot of fun keeping them. They were fun.
She's a fun dude. She's got a lot of personality. She's a fun animal. She's definitely unique.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that was it too. She was a lot of fun. So now you've kind of mentioned that process, what you've kept as far as the temperatures for adults, but now your adult setups. We're now at the 4x2x2, making that next step into an adult enclosure.
Adult enclosure, yeah. So the adults are in an 8x6 by 6. I've got about 2.5 feet of substrate in there for them. But I have 3 females to the 1 male from the F1s and the initial banded female. So there's
With
4
that
total.
volume of 2.5 feet, nearly 3 feet, I'm already kind of not suffering, but it's already a hard task to kind of keep up with the saturation and heat for that soil. How do you do it?
Especially here in the Northeast. So I have under tank pads that I've used underneath the substrate, but under the unit itself, right? And the unit does have like a nice air gap and stuff, so I've had it built up off of that to just heat the substrate from the bottom. I'm averaging on temp. I got to tell you, the further down you go, so like in the middle, I want to say it stays about 78. The lower you go, it's about 85, right? The closer you get to the heating element, and then further to the top, just because of where the spots are, because I have them high enough where the spots are on there, it's temping like 120, 130 at the top. So like that mid range, and I got to tell you, like where the girls nest, they always go on an angle. It's funny. They go in from the top and they come down that way. So you can tell they're traveling, even if they come from other sides, they're going in the direction of where's the temperature the most stable.
Yeah.
And I don't use boxes anymore for the savannas. I do try and let them lay, but what I do is whenever I'm moving substrate and stuff, I will put like at least just a cat litter pan at the bottom before I move the substrate back or whatever, just because it's really helpful to be able to pull one thing out when I'm digging, because they will usually just center, they'll center and then everything else is around it. But at least it's kind of like self-contained. But as far as moisture, I probably go through 2 or 3 gallons of water a day. So so the water is not the best here. I do my own distilled water, but I use a 2-gallon sprayer, and like twice a day, I just go through and I saturate everything, especially during the season.
Man.
Which I think it's a huge trigger, dude. Like I got to tell, because even in my first thing, it's a huge trigger. That like people are like, oh, I miss them. No. You got to spray them and make it like rain. Like it does something.
Pictures. Yeah, dump pictures. Now, like this is where I can really agree with where it's. I see why people don't do it, or I see why people don't use a lot of it. Right. Basically, it's a ton of work, right? What you just mentioned right now, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of effort to just basically have to not just heat, but to right, and then the weight and volume, right? The weight and volume alone, you're basically going through what? Tons of sand and soil, and you've got to turn it and basically upkeep it, right? With the moisture, the heat, the things like that. So I find myself every other month going through, digging it up, turning it upside down, adding more moisture to it to how I like it. And, it's like, and I can see why some people are either they aren't the conditions or their setup isn't meant for that, for one, or they don't know what they're doing, and it's understandable. It's a difficult task. You know what I mean? And it is also backbreaking work.
Yeah. Oh, it is, dude. I never want one of those cages to. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
When I first started out, because I was using like prefabbed, aluminum ones, but the substrate would just push them apart. Pop the screws right out. So like until I started getting things built, really wood frame built and stuff, like the aluminum stuff, just the weight of it, just all of a sudden stuff start coming out and stuff. Like fantastic.
I think wood framing, or if you are able to keep outside, or even if you're building something like cement blocks, basically hold that stuff in. But one of the things that you guys have touched on that I will be making sure I do in the future is my cages, even if it's like a 2x4 cage, basically if I can put a cage on top of something like a pallet, if you can find the right size pallet, if you're keeping it inside your house, make sure it'll fit through the door first before you do this kind of setup. But if you imagine a pallet, because you can use just little strips of wood around the side to kind of close it in, just cut it to the right length with a handsaw, tack it on there with a screw or nail. But you can create what you were talking about, Jake, an easy way to create like an air pocket underneath your actual cage. Because if you can heat the air under there, you're going to have a lot better result, because let's imagine that your cage is on the floor or you're not heating that. And let's say that the bottom of the dirt is 60 degrees down there, maybe, say mid 60s, and you're wetting it down the same way. You might run into those problems where it's just nasty, soggy dirt that doesn't get the same. It doesn't dry out the same, and the soil's not the same at those temperatures as you bump it up now to mid 70s or higher. The animals are going to use that a lot more. And I've noticed that throughout keeping is, you have it too cold, they don't even dig into that area and just becomes
it's a dead sand, or it's stagnant, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's it. It either, you get lazy in the fact that they don't keep it, so you don't water enough sometimes, or I don't know. There's a lot of trouble that can come with it. But for me, my way of dealing with that is to basically build things on some type of pallet, even if it's not an actual pallet, but basically building a air gap underneath that's now enclosed that I can heat that air gap to what I want. It's also, it's not hard to heat that amount of air, which over time will heat the bottom of that cage. It's not as hard as it sounds. You don't have to like really pump in a ton of heat under there to do so. You're just heating that air, which is naturally going to heat the bottom of that cage against it. And I mean, it still takes some messing around with, but
like the listeners,
bioactive, like if you can do it too. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Russ. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, and bioactive is good. Like all my setups, I do have a bioactive setup. Like there's something in each one, like to break down the medium and stuff. So like when I turn it and stuff, like they're kind of doing a lot of the work where it's like finer and finer material and stuff. Because I mean, you just need. I think one of the big things is if you can't keep them outside. I mean, again, their quarters is not a prison, and it is both a bathroom and a bedroom. And like, I mean, it's gotta. People are like, oh, natural keeping. Yeah, but I mean, natural keeping naturally sterilizes, naturally cleanses, naturally, if you're someone that's constantly struggling to feed your monitor, you definitely don't want to be shoveling out that amount of substrate and changing it and lugging it around. And by the time you're my age, you'll break your back. So you don't want to do it. So not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you were saying. Sorry.
For like the listeners that are, a lot of people don't really take this, especially for the ones that are, I would say, like moderate humidity, or the setup is, it needs to be humid, but you can go from, there's a very fine line between that and either wet and, too humid. Basically, the cage is dripping, right? And or if you're trying to keep a finer line for some of the more, I'd say like Ackies or I guess another non-tropical monitor lizard, right? And you can go from being, you just sprayed it and it dried up, and let's say you don't have depth in soil, right? And the moisture and the heat that we're talking about that heats it up, right? So you see all these components that basically they're for our females, or they're for the whole cage. But if you, as a keeper, and let's say you don't use a ton of bedding and your cage dries up quite fast, and then you have to go and spray the heck out of it again, right? Sometimes you could be doing more harm by spraying too much in some other species, right? So by, let's say, too wet for some species, and they develop blisters on their scales, or they can get bumblefoot or things like that. Basically, from being too wet, too saturated all the time without it having, some aeration and a dry surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing, or for me, I'm utilizing depth in soil versus using a nest bin, because the heated soil that's also moist, and it has, consistency of how much water I have in there, and then that, that determines how well the female likes it. Now, if that's basically up to par, your enclosure will maintain and be stabilized so much longer, so much better for your animals, the scales, shedding time, for nesting, and you don't have to find yourself spraying over and over all the time just because you're trying to keep humidity at a certain level. It's okay for you to spray and let it go down some, and spray, let it go down some. But if you find yourself, just drenching the cage and it doesn't have any type of room to breathe or dry up or have some drier surfaces, sometimes you can end up with other issues. So the depth in soil, if you're not practicing it now or trying to, see how it can work for you and just learn about it, it basically is a cage stabilizer. It helps out with so much where you don't have to continually drench it or spray it or even worry about it. I actually don't really spray and I keep pretty somewhat tropical animals. They're island going monitors where in Indonesia, Micronesia, these places rain pretty often. They also have a dry season, but I'm not going in every day and spraying multiple times a day just to keep the humidity up. I go in maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, and I'll hit it and I'll let it do its thing naturally. I found before, because I was trying to keep it at a specific thing, and I was younger, dumb and not knowing enough, and I had females, and I'd be like, hey, why are they getting these blisters, or why do the scales look like this? Basically they're just soggy scales that have developed water blisters from being too wet. So
it's funny that you mentioned it that way, Kai. Yeah.
What were you saying?
No, I was saying it's funny because I think what a lot of people do is they buy a gauge, right? And they look at the gauge and they don't take into consideration where the gauge is, and that evaporated humidity and then soil humidity are two different things. But it's really with lizards, especially ground dwelling lizards, it is soil humidity, right? And it is that depth, because like, even though I'll saturate, especially like, for such a big area, it does dry. I mean, you guys have seen pictures, I'm sure of it. I mean, it looks very, very dry, but your test is go in there, scratch away an inch or two. And if you get like a nice dark clumpy stuff, then it's doing the right thing, and the further down you go, it's just warm and humid, but it's not wet. You can't squeeze anything out. Then you're doing fine, because it's doing what it's doing. But people put that little gauge up in the corner, and if they don't see that it's at 65, they'll just start pouring water in, and then all of a sudden stuff starts pooling, and that's when you get like mold and fungus and stuff, and it's like,
especially with a screen top, they'll try to keep humidity up with a screen top, and you're chasing a dead animal at that point.
You're working against the odds, you're working against yourself, really.
You're keeping it basically in a screen top with a swimming pool of dirt down below sometimes, and it doesn't work that way. For your large cages, you said 8x6x6,
mm-hmm.
and are you cohabbing your animals, or how is that working?
Yeah, I am. I got one male to like 3 females. And then I've got like this last clutch, I kept 1 male and 2 females, and the clutch before that, I kept 1 male and 2 females. I try and keep trios because your ratio is better, because like I would say I'm like 98% accurate all the time when I sex these days, especially now, because like I'll flash them, day of. Mm-hmm. It's real easy, like that increases it. But I mean, nothing's 100%. But I find that if you always get 3, like if you're starting out 2, or you're gonna want to do this, and you're buying not one that's captive bred, and you're going to go to a store, like do yourself a favor and go to 3 different reputable places and get 3. Because I get this other one, not to get on the sexing tangent, but I get this one all the time, and I'm like, if you look at one monitor, it's always going to be very difficult to sex one monitor. It is. But if you've got 10, there are subtle differences when you've got 10 of them that you can kind of pocket, and your odds are always going to be better than 50-50.
Yes.
Right? Because everyone's like, oh, there's no sexual dimorphism. I mean, there's really no sexual dimorphism. No, there are. They're subtle, but I mean, it's the same thing with people, right? There are some people that cannot look at a dog or a cat and say that it's a boy or a girl cat. I happen to be one of the people that I can kind of look at a dog and a cat, and I'm like, oh, that's a girl. How did you know? It looks like a girl.
What?
Yeah. What? Smaller build, the head's a little smaller. It's a little more petite,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Female sounds are very, very bird-like, man. Yeah, I know. You got to be an animal person. It's so funny how many not animal people go into this trying to get that, and then they ask that question. It's like,
yeah. And you bring that up, but the other thing, you watch them enough, you can tell dogs and cats sometimes too. You can tell by watching their behavior what they do. But you need a large pool to kind of, if you've seen a bunch of cats or you've kept a bunch of cats over your life, you can kind of tell how a female will act as opposed to a male. Especially if they don't know you're watching them. But it's pretty interesting. But it just takes a second, and you pick up on some subtle cues. It's not 100%, but you mix that, maybe the behavior in what you guys were just saying, some dimorphism, and you can get really close on most of it, if not dead on after a while. So I was just wondering, because there's a lot of information out there too, and I think a lot of it comes from just not understanding the animal, and trying to simplify things means keeping them separate, just focusing on the one, seeing how they do, which I understand. Yeah. But then
I'd like to. No, go ahead. Sorry, man.
Oh, I was just going to add in that, from what I was seeing between two males and that female, now I think she was a little too young when I was introducing them, but there was different behaviors between the males. One male that she liked a little better than the other one. And how do you, what have you experienced that? What do you look for? What are you seeing, and what do you do about it?
Oh yeah.
I know, a real small question, right?
No. And it's come up more and more. So recently too, I just had someone reach out to me from Canada whose monitor, and it was a first for me. I had to reach out to Dean and to Rowan just to ask if they had ever seen it. But a male that had basically the equivalent of a sperm plug, like a ball python. But I'm like, that's not normal for a monitor to kind of have buildup like that, and just like a sexually mature male that just, solitary animal. But like, I've had solitary animals, and it was just like interesting. But like, when it comes to the trios and stuff, I have seen female, like these females mount the male. I have seen these females mount each other. I have seen what you would consider massive aggression between two males. I have seen two females that want the same male. Like this female that you got from John and stuff. So I have two brothers from the F1s, and I've tried to put her with both. She likes just one. she will not have anything to do with the other one. And I'm like, but I want you to have something to do with the other one. I want to put him with this girl, and he'll take any girl that he can. Like he's fine with whatever. Yeah. But she's like, I only want him. And I'm like, damn. And I'm like, and the thing is though, they do. I think they kind of pair bond, because like one thing I would talk about with Daniel is like, a male will keep a bunch of females in their territory. One male will do like the radius thing of a couple miles, and like they will continually try and keep those same females there, and they'll breed, with other females, but it's still like within their vicinity. And I think those females do bond with them. They want that male. A lot of birds do that too.
Yeah, kind of like a little harem that the male has, and it's interesting. There's a lot of talks of, and of course I've talked with Kai about a lot of this, just the aggression you see, and then all his wonderful experience with all the Indicus stuff and how crazy they can get. But there's been other talk. You mentioned Frank, and talking about like you find those like vagabond males, just reptile species in general, just out there crossing the road, and you pick it up and you find this male, and it's not all the time. You find females and whatnot, but it really makes me wonder how these groups are built. And like we mentioned, maybe not pair bonding. We say pair bonding because we have limited space, maybe in captivity. So it's like this male works with this female, it's going to work. So to us, it appears to be a pair. But like you said, if that male had that room to roam, then there might be multiple females in that vicinity that's the one they go to. I'm going to get myself off track here, but I wonder if a lot of times when we're out herping, we find those lone males. It's just that male that's looking for that new spot, or maybe he's cruising to the next female, or what. It just, how does this all work? What are we seeing in captivity that we're also seeing out in the wild, and trying to draw some conclusions from it. But
it's funny too, because you said that too, because and I don't know if it is an in captivity thing, right? We need more keepers to tell, but I'll say this: like the brothers, so any male from not related to one another that's mature, I've always had no success housing them together. More and more that's happening with females. Like I can raise two sisters, but like when I introduced that female to the group and stuff, like she bonded with the male, but she wasn't great with the other two females. She was not having it. But the two brothers get along fine. Like they get along fine. Like I can keep them together, and there's not, which is very weird. So it's almost like, wow, in captivity, do they have a familial thing? And the other thing that I've noticed too is like even very young. So the trio that I just kept, I think I have one of them maybe missexed, because the one that is definitely a male, and he's the biggest now, has been so aggressive with this other one that I was kind of like iffy on to begin with. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're being a jerk, and that he's probably a male and stuff, and you've got your one sister in there, and you're too young to be thinking like this right now. But no, you gotta figure this out and stuff. But what I'll do is I'll just I'll remove him and stuff, because I don't want anyone getting beat up. I like everyone being nice, and there's room for everyone, because now I've gotten enough unrelated animals that I can now pocket things around and stuff. Because I have been lucky, and I have not had to, like to Kai's point, like line breeding. But like line breeding is right. You go usually back, son to mom or something like very, very specific. I have not had to do that. And graciously, that's because, like some unrelated animals have come into my life, and that's a beautiful thing. So everything F2 is like.
Yeah, that's kind of the nice thing about still getting some of these animals that we're able to import right now. Right. So as a plus side to importing is there's new blood out there to really diversify as far as the captive pool that you're working with in the beginning. You can start with a really diverse pool, and then maybe, along the line or along the road of hopefully more captive bred savannas that people can add in, take the good information that's out there and bring in, some more new blood and keep it nice and fresh throughout. So, that's kind of. Now, I did want to get on this because we covered some of that. All right. What are you, I guess for the breeding part, what are you incubating at? Tell us about that whole process. What was that first clutch of eggs like?
Oh, that first clutch of eggs got stuck just going into the incubator with a bunch of ball python eggs. Yeah. And I was like, and they survived, and that was great. But now, my dogma is 86 Fahrenheit, 86.8 is pretty spot on. 88 is a little too warm. That first clutch was, years ago, that was fine. But, I think 86 is the sweet spot. But for me, and one thing I've noticed too, because of the European breeders and stuff, and like Dean, they all like their clutches all hatch in like 200 days and stuff for keeping at the same temp, and like mine have going back to 2004. I mean, 155, 160 days. Yeah, I'm like 152 days. I start looking in that box, and by 160 days, everything's out. So I'm like, it's a whole extra month, like that some of these other breeders, the Euro breeders, have had. And we're not doing much different in the temp thing. So it is. I do kind of wonder what it is, or if it comes down to diet or whatnot, or just general stock, right? But yeah, I mean, So 152 to 160 days at 86.8.
Okay,
is the nice sweet spot.
Yeah, I've seen, there's Alex, the other part of Sim Container. He actually lives in Northern California now too, and we were keeping sand monitors at the same time. And I know that ours were at least partially related. And he got a good clutch out of his first. I think mine were like 25 days later. Mine hatched first. Ha! But so I think about that kind of stuff too. Why is there that difference? I don't know what goes into it, but because we were keeping pretty similar. We're kind of in similar climate. Well, we're both in Northern California, and very similar animals, similar incubation, all that. So kind of interesting. And you might say like, well, a half a degree. Well, maybe, but I mean, we're talking a half a degree. I don't know how much impact that would have on how fast they would develop or not. And I think he could dial his in a little more on his incubator than I could mine. I think I had to go by half degrees or something, or full degrees. But yeah, that's something I wonder about that you brought that up. Okay, but that's another tangent for that. And what are you getting as far as clutch size?
So right now the clutches have been between 17 and 24. So the last one in February was 17. The one that just came in end of March was 22. The year before this, so 2023, that end of season one that hatched in February this year, that was 24. So yeah, so between 17 and 24. The first female from 2000, she laid like 25, 33, and another 30 something eggs, and she multi-clutched. Like she laid every 30 days. For a whole, and that female did not, she did not live to be an old lady, It was one thing Danielle and I talked about, that was like true burnout. But I also think that was part of that, turkey vitamin diet, the Calzoo turkey vitamin diet thing. Like, I think it was just too much protein, too much calcium. Like, she kind of like released everything all at once, was very prolific. I was housing everything at the same time, whatever. And then just, that was a lot on her system.
That's a great topic, I think, for another time. That what do you think, Kai? That's talking about burnout, and are we ramping them up, running animals too hot, especially monitors, because they'll show a result to us. You'll get eggs for 2 years straight almost, and then, but are we burning them out prematurely because of that? And
I think some are. I honestly still think some of the breeding of some species is still quite new, right?
Yeah.
And so people are just kind of going through the motions regardless of what it is. For me, I kind of know better just from seeing everybody else's either mistakes or what they're doing. Also, in 1 year, I think out of one female, I got a clutch like every 60 days,
That's crazy.
And they're not a lot of eggs, but from what they produce and that many clutches, it's quite a bit. This year now, I actually feed her under to keep her from gaining any much fat or to hold on to any fat to have any clutches. She's had 2 already, and I'm not really doing much at all for pounding food or cycling temps or whatever. Basically, when the weather changed from November to January type deal, she laid, and then she just recently laid again, and I'm not doing anything. Some things you can't really control. Some people don't even know how they're controlling. You know what I mean? And they just, the females are going right. For me, I kind of just, during the move of the whole grasshopper building and just ramping up and everything like that, I talked to Alan. I basically am just taking care of the monitors in a fun way. I'm not really trying to breed. I'm not even there a ton to watch the fighting, so that way I can separate them, And so I really, I on some species, like I think, going and laying several clutches a year, how many years can she really do that for?
Yeah.
And like let's say, let's take example for Kimberly's, because this is the only other species that I've bred, right, and hatched. And so my females were done after 2 years, regardless of whatever I did, and I think this is a similar trait for everybody that has Kimberly's, though, not just me. So, Kimberly's, and they're good for so long, and then they're not. And, so it's kind of a tricky thing where are we really controlling them? Do we even have control over them?
Right.
And so, do we really have control over them? And so I thought I could curve the nesting by, not feeding so much, basically moving the surface temperature lower, so that way it's not all crazy high. It's like at 115, 120 instead of 130, 135. And they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. Yeah, so I couldn't really tell you. I think, like I said again, breeding some species is still very new. So we kind of have to push the limit a little bit to see what they can handle, and then to kind of either dial it back to what what you want out of your female. For me, I find my females, they're gems. They're how I say this, they produce, and so they got to have some type of, like they're like a trophy kind of, right? And so I try to want to keep them as long as I could, but I realized that in the last several years, I've already killed 3 females, and all of them due to egg complications.
Yeah.
And none of that I can control. You know what I mean? None of it. Regardless of whatever I did, how well I was as a keeper, just belly up one day or coming out of a nesting and laying eggs, there's some type of just, she wasn't there anymore. You know what I mean? And just weak or didn't bounce back well enough. And so, I feel like pushing them too much is, what's too much for me, or for, let's say, for dwarfs, right? Every 30 to 60 days is kind of a lot, or breeding a female 7 days after she's just laid, because of biology, she's technically still cycling, still pushing eggs, right? So in some cases, you'll see breeders recommend you throw in the male 10 days after she's laid, especially if she's plump still, right? Because that means she's likely carrying those follicles still to carry on a whole nother thing. And for me, I think every 90 days is a little bit better. Every few months is what I'm trying to aim at, Right. And at this point, I'm not even doing a whole lot. I just, on a couple of them, a couple pairs right now, I kind of am trying, because I'm trying to get, it's almost like a new pair or a female that hasn't really, pushed the limits yet. But, so it's tricky. And every species is a little bit different. Kim's, I've had experience where, dude, they'll lay like 2 clutches in 60 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in 20 days, she'll lay again. And it's like, wow, fucking crazy. So, compared to some other species where it seems like they'll almost skip a year, or they got to go a while before they're ready again, And it could be your conditions that don't allow them to be ready again. It could be, a variety of things, right? So I couldn't really tell you the clear answer to that one.
Yeah. Because we are coming up on a 2-hour mark, and Jay, thank you, because I know there's a 3-hour time difference. So 5 o'clock ish for us, so it's 8 o'clock ish for you. So I know you got a little one and all that. But is there anything we didn't cover that you think that the people need to know about savannas?
They're just a whole lot of fun. Don't just call them the Savannah Monitor. Like they're still a great animal. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, there's a world of monitors out there, but the Savannahs are good. But as far as anything else too, and they're not mean. I don't know why everyone thinks they're so mean. It's approach. So
yeah,
and it's a respect thing. I will say that though, they are definitely bossy animals. So yeah, that's about it for now.
Yeah, I had a blast with that girl, and I would entertain in the future doing something again, but I need more space, to be fair to them.
We all need more space.
Yeah. What are you keeping other monitors?
Well, yeah, dude, I got two. I got a pair of black roughnecks. I got a pair of Dorianus. I got a pair of bells who are mating as we speak. I'm kind of at the max. It's like I need to ease up and stuff for a bit.
You say that.
But it's like Pringles,
No, you
right?
don't.
You can't have just one. You can't just have one.
You're right.
Yeah, that's what I said too. And then I bought 2 more Young Cola, and I'm just like, why? Why'd you do that?
Because you know, there.
Yeah.
To your point, to not burn anything out, right? What's the best thing to do? What is Rob doing? What's Mike do? You get other ones, but also you keep colonies. You keep some things back, but then all of a sudden it's like I've got 9 Savannah monitors just themselves. Like that's a lot, and then I've got all these other species. It's a little crazy. Yeah,
I can't even tell you how many. And these are I'm just talking the dwarf monitors, but like I can't tell you how many I got.
Everyone's like, "Oh, what happens to your water monitors?" I'm like, "I don't have room for any of that right now. I'm sorry."
Right? Yeah.
They found good homes. You know, that's what happens to them. They found good homes.
See, I keep telling myself the next clutch of SAM monitors, I'm going to keep back a couple groups, but that's a lot of room. And if I do get some luck with the Dorianus, then you know, how could I not keep back some of those? And oh my gosh.
Be careful with this. I just want to let you know, my 6-year-old male has unfortunately killed 2 females, 2 egg-laying females on me.
Oh man!
Instead of breeding them, and they were housed together, but like he ended up like I was, and it was like I was at work and can't like with nothing I could do about, you know, like just saw that the way it went down. You know, I don't know why, but they are. I don't know. Maybe he's just a hot one, but he's pretty. Not thrilled. Yeah. Unlike the Savannahs, they just like, you know, a little Barry Manilow and they're ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. This pair I've been pretty fortunate with so far. They've had a couple little interactions, nothing serious. I think I got the most serious bite out of the 3 of us, but, they're pretty good. They've been, off and on since I've had them. I think the most they've spent apart is probably about 3 months total. So, you know, the majority of 2 years or so they've been together. So far, so good. Now, I know full well right now they're not kept in a way that I can really promote breeding them. That's just the truth till I'm get some other things in place to set up for them the way I want to. So I wonder if there'll be a change to how they act once I can really kick them off the way I want to. I'll have to just pay attention. But okay, we're getting there. Jay, we're gonna have to have you back on if you something you'd like to do. We could talk a lot more monitors and
I'd love to.
Yeah, it always seems to me like, okay, 15 minutes. I'm thinking about the rest of the show, the questions to ask, and like, all right, I think we're doing good on time. You know, we're getting there. And then next time I look up, it's close to 2 hours, and you know, it's like, wow, that went quick. And but where can people find you?
Oh, so Facebook and Instagram at JLCL Reptiles. You can email me directly at jlclreptiles@gmail.com. Or you can just, you know, if you find me on Facebook, it's Jay Lewis on Facebook. I'm always open to chat about animals and just,
and it's not it's not LEWIS, it's LOUIS.
Yeah, LOUIS.
So you guys look up. If you guys are looking up Lewis and you don't find him, it's LOUIS.
You'll see this with my kid next to me. That's the profile picture. It's not a lizard.
Do you currently have any animals available right now?
No, just what's in the eggs. Everything went within 30 days.
That's great news, man. That's good. That's good. You know, a lot of times people, I mean, even myself, I find it's like you're competing with, you know, the wild caught market, right? And so people, you know, kind of give up. But I think if you really find the passion in what you do, you don't let it bug you too much. Yeah, it is annoying when people do that and whatnot and compare you to wild caught stuff, and you put, you know, they basically downgrade all your hard work, right? But you know, we keep it for the lizards. We're not keeping it for, you know, making a ton of money. And if you don't make money, you sell the lizards, and you know, where's the real passion in that? You know what I mean? So, man, I'm actually glad what you do. I didn't get a chance to really say it, and I know we don't talk a lot on the Facebook stuff, but I've seen your work for the last few years, and congratulations, man. You know, it's
absolutely,
it's good to have.
No, it's good to finally meet. I've seen your stuff too. When he said you'd be on, I'm glad we're having the opportunity to meet. So definitely, like, hit me up.
Yeah. No, man, it's great. It's great to see people do the hard work, man. That people are always like, why don't people breed savannas? Why don't people breed savannas? A lot of the topics you see that we've discussed today are the reasons why. It's not just the hardness or the hard to sell, or you're working against wild caught prices that are basically dirt cheap. But if you want to listen to this over, you talk about the mental that it goes into this, and if you really look at all of it. So hey man, It was great to have you on, boss.
Thank you. It was so good to be a part of this. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. It was great. And one more thing, just for the listeners out there. So if you didn't catch on, I had a Savannah project when I moved out of knew I was going to be moving out of the warehouse. Some things had to change. I had an older male. Unfortunately, he did pass. He was an older guy, but I got him from a buddy of mine. And he was already I think he was blind when I got him. And, but he was great. Animal. And then I was borrowing a male from somebody else, and I had too many things, and I had to choose. And I remember having these conversations with Kai. It's like, I know I want to keep the sand monitors, and I was iffy on the blue tails, but I did keep 2 of the blue tails. Moved all the tree monitors, and this Savannah monitor. It was honestly a hard one for me because she was my little baby. I had a great time with her. She looked great. She was just so much fun. And I had not really taken a hard look at Savannahs for a lot of different reasons, but she changed my mind on it. It was definitely a project that I would love to work. Or I would love to work with Savannahs again one day when I can. But Jay didn't come seeking out me. I saw what he was doing, and I went to him and said, I want you to, if you can. He was like, I don't know where I'm going to fit another animal. And it took a while too. And some of that was, I had a bunch of changes going on, but I think by the time I contacted him to the time I actually shipped the animal to you, it was like several months at least.
Yeah, it was like several months. Yeah. Yeah.
But it worked out, and she couldn't be in better hands. I'm so glad that worked out. I'm so glad to have you on here. And yeah, the amount of time and work you put into that species, it speaks for itself. So go and check out his stuff now that you know where to find him. Real quick, Kai, we should finish it up. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook mostly. I'm also on Instagram at big_lizard103. You can find me mostly on Facebook. I'm much more responsive on Messenger, just under Kai Fan. And yeah, that's mostly it. But there's a couple other places like the NPR network under this podcast here, the Monitor Keeping Podcast. I also have YouTube that I don't ever really update that much, Mangrove Mecca. And really, that's it. If you're trying to contact me and you're trying to get a faster response, nowadays I'm a little bit tapped. So Facebook Messenger would be the best place.
Good stuff.
What about you, man? Where can they find you?
Facebook, you can find me at Origins Reptile, and then on Instagram it'd be Origins_Reptile. And like Kai said, and I forgot because we had recorded so long on the last episode we recorded last week to bring up Eric, first off, the NPR network and all the work he puts in to make this all happen. So my apologies, but please check out NPR. We're just one of the podcasts. If you like reptiles, believe me, there's a podcast for it. I think there's 10 or 11 podcasts, different hosts, amazing hosts that have been doing stuff a long time. Some of them are professors, some of them are doctors, some of them have just been doing this for an amazingly long time and have had some crazy success. And some are just crazy people like me and Kai that, got a love for something. We're trying to understand it as best we can. But yeah, go onto their website. You can just type in NPR Network. Believe me, they'll pop up and you'll find their social media. You'll find the different podcasts. They're available on any major podcast service as well as YouTube to listen to. So thank you, Eric, for continuing to make this work and being patient with us when we got life stuff going on and all that. So, all right, Jay, thank you again. And
thanks so much, guys.
Hey, man, it was nice to meet you, man, and good luck in the projects, and you're doing awesome work, bro.
Yeah,
awesome work.
Take care, guys. You're good. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, have a great one.
Bye.